With SoFi Active Invest, you can get in on IPOs prior to them being traded on the stock exchange. Access alternative investment funds that include venture capital, real estate, and commodities, and trade stocks, ETFs, and options, all on an intuitive platform that's easy to use. Plus, you'll even get a chance at up to $1,000 in stock when you fund a new Active Invest account with at least $50. Brokers and active investing products offered through SoFi Securities LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. For a full listing of fees associated with SoFi Invest, please view our fee schedule. Investments are not FDIC insured, are not bank guaranteed, may lose value. Probability of a member receiving $1,000 is a probability of 0.028%. For more information, including funds, investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses, please head over to sofi.com/invest. Before we begin, please note that this conversation may include forward-looking statements. These statements are subject to risks and uncertainties, which are described in the company's SEC filings and investor relations materials. The views expressed in this discussion are solely those of the guest and do not necessarily represent the views of the host or the show. This discussion is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as investment, legal, or tax advice, nor as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any security. You should always consult with a qualified financial advisor or tax professional before making investment decisions. The host and guest disclaim any liability for losses that may result from reliance on this discussion. Remember, all investing involves risk, and past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Welcome to Marketopolis, at the crossroads of Wall Street and the internet. In a feed-driven era powered by Reddit, Robinhood, YouTube, X, and many other platforms, retail investors drive the conversation online. Corporate access has been blown wide open, conversations move at the speed of social platforms, and CEOs, IROs, and comms teams are rewriting the investor relations playbook in real time. I'm Matt Giuano, CEO of Stakeholder Labs. Each episode, I talk with public company CEOs and top operators to uncover fresh strategies for communicating and competing in today's markets. Whether you hold a single share or just love the story, you'll take away practical lessons for navigating modern public markets. This is Marketopolis. Let's get into it. Today on Marketopolis, we're talking with Matt Meeker, founder and CEO of Bark. Yes, the ticker Bark. If you know BarkBox or you've seen Bark Air in your feed, this is the guy steering the dog's first revolution. We cover the hard pivot from survival to profitability, what it really takes to right size, fix unit economics, and still dream big on the public markets. We dig into why retail investors now matter more than ever, how Bark plans to meet them on X and Discord, and what it means to optimize for LLMs so brands actually show up where decisions are made. And then the vision, a world built from a dog's eye view, from toys and treats to planes and beyond. Meeker's North Star over the next 5 years, it's the number of dogs flown. So buckle up. This one's equal parts investor playbook and brand masterclass. This is Marketopolis. Let's jump in. All right, Matt, welcome to Marketopolis. To kick things off, let's dive right in. Would love to have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the company you lead.
Sure. My name's Matt Meeker. I'm the CEO, founder of Bark, B-A-R-K. That's our ticker symbol and our name. And the company we're here to make all dogs happy. And we do that through a variety of products, including a monthly subscription box of toys and treats that we send, all range of consumables, food, dental products, treats, toppers, you name it, for your dog. And even things like an airline that transports you and your dog around the world.
I saw that. That's an exciting update, and I'd love to dive into that. Expanding to an airline business, that's not something you hear every day. Maybe stepping back a little bit, I know your journey founding the company, you've been involved, you left, you came back. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that journey and how it got you to where you're at today?
Sure. The journey on that is pretty simple. It's I got into the business because I love my dog and I want to make him happy, and he was my motivation and inspiration, and saw a day on the horizon where he wouldn't be with us anymore. And my feeling at that point was, when he's gone, I won't want any association with Bark. And it turned out when the day came, I had the opposite feeling, that not only do I want to be part of it, I feel a deep responsibility to be part of it and uphold his legacy and contribution to it. So that's what brought me back in. That's what keeps me going every day. But that's kind of how that whole thing unfolded.
I love that. And as a dog owner and a Bark customer, I can appreciate that. What kind of dog did you have? What was his name or her name?
A Great Dane named Hugo.
Hugo. What a great name. I love it.
Uh,
Uh, and I guess kind of looking at running a public company, Matt, what's the day in the life look like as a CEO? And this is kind of a leading question to a lot of the CEOs I talk to would say they have two jobs. One of their jobs is to actually run the company. The other is to help the company navigate the public markets. So curious, what do your days look like? How do you balance those two jobs? And what are some of the challenges of this role as a public company CEO?
I think I'm still learning this job as the public company CEO. So the job number one when I came back was survive. We'd just come off of a year where we started the year with $400 million in cash. We ended the year with $200 million in cash. Just on that trajectory, that tells you you've got 12 months left, and then you're done. So job one was survive, and that meant diving deep into the business and every aspect of it, getting your financials in order, your unit economics in place, getting your team in the right place, right sizing your team. A lot of difficult, painful things that don't happen in a quarter. And we've done that, and we've swung our way into being EBITDA positive, cash flow generative, even through a challenging tariff piece, rebuilt a good team. And so where that's put me now is it's sort of thrust me into probably the typical public company CEO role you're talking about, which is higher level long-term strategy, managing those business leaders, but giving them a lot more rope, and getting my mind around what's more than the cursory interaction with the public markets and the investors, and how do I manage a public stock? And that's right where I am right now.
I love it. Perfect time for this conversation. So I guess diving into that latter part, how do you think about communicating with the market? There's all types of different investors today. You have your institutionals, you have your retail, there's the more traditional coverage, but there's also X and YouTube and Reddit and individual stock trading apps. How do you think about a message that reaches all of them, or maybe do you think about different types of messages for different audiences?
Well, first, I think it's important you have a message, and a core one that it's what everyone's striving for. A very simple core message that's easy to grab onto and easy for any investor to say, well, if they can do that, then they can do these other 10 things that I could imagine. And we haven't been very good about that. I think our message has been more financial based of, again, let us prove to you that we will survive. Let us prove we can actually be profitable. Now the demand from the market, because we're not leading them with that story, is we'll show that you can grow and you can be profitable at the same time. So we've had, over the past 3-4 years, we've had a series of show me stories where the goalposts just keep moving, because we haven't set out that broader, ambitious story for the market or for ourselves. So we've got to start there. We've got to define that story and then start to work towards it and give people some of those seeds of possibility of, if we can do that, then we can do these other things. In terms of the investor base that you're talking to, I think we go through a lot of mechanics, because that's what you're supposed to do. This is the way the game is played traditionally. So you go to the conferences, you do the fireside chats, you take the calls with the institutional investors, because wow, wouldn't that be great if they were on your top table? And it would, but structurally it's very difficult for them to get a meaningful position with us, or trade around $1. It's not the right entry point, and it's not the right investment for most of those. So our actions don't meet. We're talking to the wrong people. As simple as that. I think the world has changed as well, where the retail investor is much more active, and and drives the performance of a stock much more. And they're on the whole, I don't think they're combing through the analyst reports and demanding calls with us. So you've got to meet them where they are and speak their language. And uh, I've been reluctant to do it, not because I don't want to. More so, I'm afraid of making a mistake, and so it's something where I'm getting excited now to put my toe in the water and start to meet those retail investors on their ground, whatever that is, if that's X, if that's Discord, whatever. But try to find my way in there and just be myself, tell the story, and see where it goes.
Yeah, a lot has changed. And I think your point around balancing the foundational messages with how you might reach retail and taking the traditional playbook and building on that is something that a lot of CEOs we talk to are thinking about. Relatedly, Matt, you guys have a very strong brand in market. You guys have amazing marketing campaigns. You launched Bark Airlines. You had a campaign recently about the dogs being the owners and really why that's a priority for you guys. We see that translate a lot to investor communities as well, where consumers and customers of certain brands are more aware of those customers as a potential investment. When you think about the consumer marketing that you guys are doing, is any of that, do you think, resonating with potential investors, or do you identify with how these different campaigns can reach investors in communities like Reddit and X and even YouTube?
I don't think they do nearly as much as they could. And again, I think that's on us for not connecting the two enough. Where I think we have strong brands like BarkBox is a really strong brand. Bark Air came out of the gate very strong with a lot of awareness, and it's a really strong brand on its own. And our interactions with our customers, our relationships are in a great place. But oftentimes what I'll hear is, oh, I didn't realize Bark, this ticker symbol, is BarkBox or is Bark Air. Or, so the Bark brand as a whole is not nearly as widely recognized as the product lines that people are interacting with. And we have to do a better job of connecting those.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies we talk to are thinking about that. They are seeing that investors are discovering their stock as consumers, and vice versa. Investors become customers because they found the stock and they're more inclined to support the company by being a customer. As you guys are looking at communicating to the next generation of investors, I'm always curious, in your personal life, are you using a brokerage app? Are you a Robinhood user or a Webull user? Are there newsletters you subscribe to? I think it's always interesting because a lot of the CEOs we talk to, they also make their own personal investments. So what is your kind of information source, or how are you seeing these things on your end?
Yeah, I'm probably like that retail investor who's dabbled a lot in a bunch of things over the years, and I've learned it usually works out better if I take my money and I hand it off to someone and say, whatever you've got going, like, here's my risk tolerance, just take care of that, and I'll pretend it doesn't exist. And usually that turns out pretty well. So I put the bulk of what I have there. Um, the my flavor of the month, if you will, right now, I always reserve a little bit over here for me to have fun with and play with or learn. So my learning right now is around making ChatGPT my investment advisor, which doesn't sound super exotic, but it's pretty remarkable how it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper with me, where you can get the one-off answer pretty easily, but customizing the portfolio or the approach, I'm a couple months into this. The performance is out of the park. So I remember I started 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago, uh, I I gave it a task basically of I want to maximize my returns. I have a very high risk tolerance. Uh, I'll take downside protection, but I don't really need it. Um, Very small test, so nothing to get crazy about here. But
Sure.
so far, I'm up about 70%.
Wow.
And you're pursuing high risk option strategies, not buying a public stock.
Sure.
Uh, so you're going to get those big. You're going to have a more volatile portfolio, but that's my fun right now.
So we are seeing a lot of retail that's utilizing institutional grade tools, and obviously they can get ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini off the shelf, but there are also specialized apps, and it's really changing the landscape because retail obviously has had an association of being less sophisticated, but in
Mhm.
today's world, sometimes they're more sophisticated than institutional investors. It sounds like you're exploring on the personal side, but does that change how you guys think about retail from the Bark side, as retail is a lot more sophisticated than they were in the past?
Oh, of course, and I mean, we think about it from a customer acquisition perspective, but also from a investor acquisition perspective of if these are tools that investors are going to use, then the tools need to recognize you or fit you into their consideration set for the recommendations they're giving to investors. So you've got to give the LLMs the right information to work with, and how you get into the consideration set is interesting. Even between the different LLMs. So for me and what have been trying to do personally with these option strategies, I found Chat GPT to, I guess, be the best advisor for me.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't have the same interaction with Claude.
Sure.
Didn't Wasn't getting the same rationale and the depth of thought where I was like, oh yeah, you're onto something. That's a good thought. Let's keep this going. Uh, but one of the things I had to nudge it away from early on was it's also using my personal history with ChatGPT. So round one, every stock pick or every option idea was pet oriented. I said, "Well, I understand, understand why you're thinking of me in that way, but let's put that out of our minds for a minute and let's start over here." And then you find a real bias for AI oriented companies. It's like, well, maybe, but um, so yeah, there's certainly like the personal side of can I turn $1,000 into $2,000 pretty quickly? That's fun, but there's also the intellectual learning for the day job of how do you get your company, your products, your stock, whatever it is, in front of the LLM and represented in the right way and surfaced for whoever the consumer is on the other side.
Yeah, that's a great transition. We're seeing a lot of public companies on the investor relations and corp comms side. They're utilizing what's called GEO, so generative engine optimization, and they're very attuned to how their companies show up within ChatGPT or Claude or Grok, and both on the consumer side, but also on the investor side. One of the questions we like to ask CEOs is what does it look like? How do you track your stock? Are you just pulling up Robinhood and looking at Bark and Robinhood? I'm sure you're getting some reporting on your end, but how are you taking in market signals or sentiment on a daily basis? We've had CEO, let's say they just have the Apple app and they have their stock on their home screen and they track it that way. But I'm always curious, public company CEOs, how you track your own metrics.
To be honest, I try not to. I
Sure.
I try to do the thing of like run the company and forget about the stock, and
Hmm.
but it's part of the job to remember the stock and actually drive that performance. So I get a daily email at the end of the day from the NYSE that says, here's how the stock performed today. If I'm really disciplined, that's all I look at in a day. I look at that one email, it gives me the recap, and then we go on to the next day. Um, oftentimes I'll hear something from someone about like, oh, great performance today, or why are we down so much? Uh, so you get pulled out of it that way. And then we have a very small but an investor relations team who gathers more signals, analysts, investors they meet with, sentiment from message boards. Um, we actually do quite a bit of uh, retail investor engagement, let's say, and trying to surface awareness of Bark, true feelings of Bark, and just how do they feel? What today is on their mind, and are we addressing that? Are we either speaking about it, or are we addressing it in how we're running the business? Um, so there's a lot of ways of gathering the signals. Day to day, I really try to just I've got my daily check in.
Yeah, you've got your blinders on. Very, very similar to what we hear across the board. And Matt, maybe getting into a little bit of the ethos and philosophy behind dogs as owners and owners of the company. And I thought that was a fun campaign. It definitely plays into this idea of who the company is for and the community you guys are trying to build. Can you share a little bit about how that campaign came together and maybe what you guys were trying to accomplish with that?
Sure. It's been something that's been true of Bark since the beginning. We long ago we would call that dog's eye view. That's anything we did, we looked through the dog's eye view, and that's how we would develop a product or an ad campaign. We often it's we saw that what we considered to be a mistake of other pet companies was always marketing to or speaking to a human. And we took the point of view that if you serve the dog, the human will follow, because they're there just to make their dog happy. The and so that's been a company long philosophy, if you will. The campaign here, the co-owned campaign, really came about as we were developing our new food product, our new consumables line, Bark in the Belly, and we're talking about it. I think maybe a dirty secret in dog food is it's basically all the same. It all keeps the dog alive. It's basically the same. And so if you have the same product as any other company, and your price point is the same, and you're sold in the same place, then it's all marketing as to what makes it stand out. And we started to think about that, and again, go from the dog's eye view and say, well, if the dogs ran things around here, what would they do? And the answer to that was, well, the first thing they would do is they wouldn't take profits and stuff them in their pockets. They would make sure all their friends got fed. And so let's do that. Let's make sure that there are no hungry dogs before we take any profits. We were going to go a little negative on it and say there are going to be no fat cats. We don't support fat cats. I won't name any fat cats, but you can look across the industry. That's where it started, and it sort of spiraled into, well, what if we made every decision and the dogs actually ran the place? How would that go? And so that is what kicked off the co-owned campaign.
I love it. And it kind of gets to the philosophy of finding shareholders that subscribe to that same philosophy and have that long-term view and want to be a part of the Bark journey. As you think about engaging more directly with retail and the overlap of retail investors in your customer base, what would be a message that you would send to retail investors, and what would kind of be the headline as far as why you want to see more of them aligned with your long-term goals as a company? And obviously a lot of this potentially is speaking to Bark customers as well.
The first is, I think there's I'm every CEO here. We're terribly undervalued, right? But right now our market value is less than our enterprise value. So if you believe we'll be alive, then you should believe that we're undervalued. And we have a pretty low entry point, and you have the ability to um, really accelerate the growth from here. We've taken a step back in terms of the growth as we got the fundamentals of the company in place. They're there. We just turned EBITDA positive for a full year for the first time. So you're jumping off of a very low entry point and a solid foundation that says, great, you've got a great audience. It's over half of the households in the US. You have a strong brand. You have a solid foundation in terms like financial foundation of a profitable company. And what that leads me to is, okay, what's next? So what are the possibilities? And the dog has been a family member for the last 3 or 4 decades. The innovation to serve that dog as a family member has been going from dry food to wet food, and I that's fine, but that's like going from one flavor of Gerber baby food in the 30s to 5 flavors on the shelf. Great, but it doesn't. The possibility of treating the dog like the family member is so much more expansive than that, and I think we've shown that in air travel. But take it back to human children, that you can go from 3 flavors of Gerber to 5, but you can create Nickelodeon and Disney and Mattel and Hasbro, and you can have children's menus in restaurants, and you can have resorts that are focused on bringing kids in, and on and on and on and on and on. And none of this has been created for dogs who most people in those 65 million households think of them as a family member. So we started with one that, sure, it's a big endeavor, but flying with your dog and treating them with dignity and with care, like not putting them into a position where they could possibly die on the journey. That should be table stakes. Fine. Now an airline will allow some in a cabin as long as they're stuffed into a small bag and pressed under a seat. That's not a really fun way to travel for 5 hours. So just basic travel. That's one starting point. And if we can accomplish that and do that in a fast growing, profitable way, what are the next 100? We start to stack those. We continue to build on top of a strong brand. And there's just tremendous possibility beyond there. I know the last few years haven't been very sexy in terms of, sorry, we have to get our house in order when it comes to the financials, but we've done the not fun stuff now, and the possibility in front of us is just enormous.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that analogy as the dog is a family member, being a dog owner, I know even with Bark Air, we've made travel decisions based on what's best for our dog, driving to Utah instead of flying. And that creates a different calculus in those decisions. Matt, we're getting towards the end. I want to ask you a few questions around your inspiration. So what's maybe a company outside your industry that you study for inspiration or product cues? Who's a company that you think is doing a good job that inspires you?
There are quite a few, and it sort of depends which lens you're looking through. I'm inspired by early Disney, or maybe the progression, or like, let's say, the Walt Disney years, and the twists and turns of what I'd say like an entertainment company turning into innovating within that space, but then all of a sudden there's a theme park, and then there's just on and on and on. So innovation from that point of view, I think innovation can come in other ways that aren't just these bold product launches, like Amazon going from retail into AWS, into Fulfilled by Amazon, into Prime, into all of that. So maybe I'll just stay with those two companies, which are pretty inspiring.
Yeah, both incredible companies. Last question on our end. If you're looking 5 years out, what is a non-financial KPI that will tell you that Bark has been successful?
Um, number of dogs flown.
I love it. Matt, really appreciate all the time. As we close out, where can people find you online? Obviously, you have your investor relations website. Anywhere you personally, if they want to follow you, they should look.
Yeah, I'm not the most prolific poster, but if you engage with me on X, I'll certainly respond there.
Amazing. Well, appreciate the time. Excited to follow along with your journey, and we'll keep track of those dogs flown over the next few years.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Marketopolis, powered by Stakeholder Labs. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss upcoming conversations with the leaders shaping modern investor relations.